have to say to the honourable gentleman, I wish I had the privilege of walking around this country and not seeing the division that the issue of migration and asylum system is creating across this country. Unlike him, unfortunately, I am the one that is regularly called a fucking packy and told to go back home. It is I who knows through my personal experience and that of my constituents just how divisive the issue of asylum has become in our country. And I do say to him, I wish it were possible to say that there isn't a problem here, that there's nothing to see and that it is all, in fact, just extremist right-wing talking points. But this system is broken, and it is incumbent on all members of Parliament to acknowledge how badly broken the system is and to make it a moral mission to fix this system so that it stops creating the division that we all see. And I do say to him, I do not think it is acceptable or appropriate for people in this place to not acknowledge the real experience of those who sit outside of this House. We are supposed to be in here to reflect that experience in this House, and I hope that he will approach the debates that we will no doubt have on all of these measures in that spirit.
About the millions of people that have become refugees or homeless all around the world, and that more than 2/3 of those are housed by the southern countries, the poorest countries in the world, with the least resources possible to do it. And what she's doing instead is putting in draconian measures against refugees trying to come to this country, failing to recognise that more than 6,000, for example, of those that crossed the Channel this year come from Afghanistan, a war-torn country that we helped to make into a war-torn country. And she instead is trying to appease the most ghastly right-wing racist forces all across Europe in undermining and walking away from the European Convention on Human Rights, a convention created by the post-war Labour government. Does she not recognise history is going to be a harsh judge on this government for undermining the whole global humanitarian principles behind the ECHR and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights?
Home Secretary.
Well, not for the first time, I'm a little mystified as to what the honourable gentleman is talking about. He starts with the global context. I guess my start point is different to his because I start with our domestic context first. He ought to know that in this country there have already been bespoke schemes for the resettlement of people from Afghanistan. So perhaps he could, read up on those schemes. He should also have heard from what I said in my statement that we remain absolutely committed to offering sanctuary to those who are fleeing conflict abroad. We think that the best way to do that is not to encourage people to get on a boat in the Channel by paying thousands and thousands of pounds to people smugglers, who, by the way, it's not just smuggling that's a vile crime. Those individuals are involved in all sorts of other disgusting organised crime. They should not be in receipt of money from vulnerable people. I want to disincentivise people making that choice, and I want to incentivise people coming on safe and legal routes instead. And if he would actually read the asylum policy statement, he would know it's the policy position of this government to provide more safe and legal routes. Once he's done more reading, I'll be happy to answer more of his questions.
Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I do remember when the Prime Minister pledged an immigration system based upon compassion and dignity. Yet now, and it needs to be said, we've got an immigration minister tweeting deport, deport, deport. And now this policy announcement, which I'm afraid scrapes the bottom of the barrel. If we're being frank, isn't this just a desperate attempt to triangulate with reform? And like some of the other terrible policy errors that have been made in recent months, isn't it not only morally wrong, but another policy which is set to push away Labour voters? Why not recognise that now than in a few months and make a U-turn?
Home Secretary.
I would really caution my honourable friend not to defend a broken status quo. He should also know that it is foreign national offenders that are deported from this country, and I would hope he could agree that foreign national offenders should be deported from this country. We should not be keeping convicted criminals in our nation a day longer than is absolutely necessary. And I just say to him, the thing that's morally wrong is knowing that you have a broken system and then pretending either that it's not broken or defending a broken status quo. I will never tolerate that, and I have to say to him, as I've said to other members opposite today as well, I do not care for what other parties are saying on these matters or what other politicians have to say either. I have thought first and foremost of my moral responsibility to the people of this country as I fulfil my duty as Home Secretary. I have a series of reforms here that are underpinned by the values of the Labour Party and the values of the British people. They are fairness and they are contribution. I hope he will reflect on that as he reads up on the detail of these reforms.
Ben Oxojecti.
Mr. Speaker, in February, during the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, I raised the issue of the generous financial and accommodation package advertised on the government's own website, Asylum Support What You'll Get, which outlines the provision of an Aspen card with £49.18 of cash loaded onto it each week, on top of free accommodation, even if you've been refused asylum. Cards that are able to be used for gambling and have been over 6,000 times, according to an FOI. In May, I raised it again when I asked the previous Home Secretary what she planned to do to address the pull factor of this free cash and free home. So can this Home Secretary now commit to my previous calls that these pull factors must be mitigated to be a deterrent, and will those on Section 4 or Section 95 support have the benefit withdrawn under these measures?
Home Secretary.
Well, I would urge him to look at the detail of the asylum policy statement, the whole point of which is to deal with the pull factors that we know are drawing people to get on a dangerous boat and cross the channel illegally. The upshot of the reforms is to deal with those pull factors, and you will know that within the asylum policy statement we have said that it is a relatively small number, it's just under 10%, but just under 10% of those in asylum accommodation already do have the right to work, and in future we will expect them, where they have the right to work, to work.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Home Secretary is arguing that what will heal this divided nation is to get somebody who we have agreed is a refugee with a well-founded fear of persecution to feel a permanent sense of limbo, because they will never be able to plan for the long term for them or their family, because their status will always be uncertain, because they could still face deportation. Her consultation document, which I have read, talks about using enforced return for families. Last year alone, 10,000 children, many of whom are with their families, were granted refugee status in this country. I know she plans to consult, but given this does involve children, can she be clear with us whether she intends to incarcerate children with their families as part of enforced return, or whether she intends to separate children from their mums and dads as part of this policy, and how we will continue to uphold the UN Rights to the Child Convention returns of education?
Home Secretary.
Well, I would encourage my honourable friend to look at the detail of the asylum policy statement on our intentions in relation to the protection, work and study route, which in future will be the route by which refugees can contribute and earn their way to settlement in this country. And of course, it is the express intention of this policy statement to disincentivise people coming through dangerous channel crossings, and to incentivise and to push people towards what will, over time, become more generous, safe and legal routes of entry into this country with more privileged status when it comes to the earning of permanent settlement. Let me say to her on failed asylum-seeking families, because I think that is the important context that was missing from her question. There are 700 Albanian families at the moment who have made asylum claims. Those asylum claims have failed, and the only reason they've not been removed from the country is because of the policies around not removing families, that is to say parents with their children. We are not going to separate parents and their children, but we are going to consult on the removal of support and how we effectively and safely ensure that those individuals are returned. But we will of course want to see most of those people return voluntarily instead.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
Stoking fear and division through the kind of performative cruelty trailed over the media this weekend has consequences. We saw that in Caerphilly last month, where Reform UK spread information. Ukrainians spoke of intimidation. So when she speaks of unity, surely the lesson from Caerphilly is that imitating Reform doesn't create unity, doesn't win trust, but standing firm on values does.
Here, here.
I'm sorry, that's just unserious from the Honourable Lady. I'm sorry to find that the Reform Party is living rent-free in so many people's heads. I can assure you it's living nowhere near mine. These policy proposals are designed to fix what we all know to be true, which is we have a broken system. It is driving division across our country. I see that in my own constituency. I hope she's not suggesting that the evidence of my own eyes and my own experience in my own constituency, where over 70% of those people are not white and most of them have a migration story just like my own. These are matters of great interest across our country, across every type of community in our country, and it is incumbent on any government that wants to make sure that we can run a decent system and not fuel division in our country to pursue the sorts of reforms that we are talking about today, underpinned by what I would have hoped were values that her party could have signed up to as well, and that is to say fairness and contribution.
Lauren Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank and support the Home Secretary for her statement today. This is long overdue reform of the system, such as reforming safe and legal routes, cracking down on illegal working, and also against those abusing the asylum seeking and immigration system, yet maintains support for those that need our support, such as those fleeing war in Ukraine and others that come here legally. It is about fairness. Can the Home Secretary detail when these reforms will be in place so that residents can see the outcomes of these actions?
Thank my honourable friend for her question. We will pursue the consultation, the measures that require consultation as quickly as possible, and there will be legislation in the coming months, and certainly in the second session, which we will seek to, obviously, subject to the agreement of the House, pass as quickly as possible.
Joe Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Home Secretary's asylum plans still have a gaping hole in the middle of them, in that she doesn't know what to do with failed asylum seekers who can't be returned home. Her statement today says that she's exploring possibilities with third countries. Can I suggest she swallows her pride and speaks to a third country we know is willing, Rwanda?
Home Secretary.
I do say to members opposite, they are going to have to ditch their addiction to Rwanda. It didn't work, and nobody in the country supported it. We are, as he well knows, and as members opposite well know, when you are negotiating with other countries about possible agreements, the one thing you do not do is publicise them before an agreement is reached.
Rebecca Long-Bailey.
The Home Secretary is aware that in absence of safe legal routes, the law forces the situation where a refugee has to set foot on UK soil to seek asylum, which has led to dangerous journeys and no checks or vetting taking place. Now, the Secretary's referenced sponsorship as the primary safe route. Could she clarify whether this is capable of being applied for from outside the UK? And what consideration has she made of recommendations by Safe Passage to implement a visa refugee scheme so that applications can be done from outside the UK, cases assessed, vetted and decided upon before a refugee embarks on a dangerous journey here?
Home Secretary.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question. The whole purpose of the new safe and legal routes is that those individuals are accepted as refugees before they enter into the United Kingdom. The point of that being is that they never then pay thousands of pounds to illegal smugglers along any sort of route that they might travel on. So it is in fact exactly as she says, you want to accept people as refugees before they set foot on UK soil, and then once they are here on that safe and legal route, they will access permanent settlement more quickly than any other route in this country, and it is a good thing that the government is seeking to incentivise people to come through safe and legal routes and not pay thousands and thousands of pounds to criminals along the way.
Dr. Andrew Mirison.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It was a genuinely good statement as far as it went, from which we learnt that countries could be determined to be safe at some point in the future and refugees from them returned home. Can the Home Secretary say what her criteria